Welcome back, dear listeners. Today we are going to talk about routine and habits. I know that this is a big topic and many people are talking about this, but I thought I'm going to bring this in because it's been 5 years since I quit smoking, and I wanted to celebrate this with this episode. I quit smoking after 19 years of smoking a pack a day. And I think I tried at least 3 times. Once I managed to quit for 2 years, once I managed to quit for half a year. So yeah, it was a big struggle. So right now I'm just actually celebrating smoke-free for 5 years. And also in the past 4 months, I lost about 6-7 kilos of my body weight. So I'm really happy about that as well. So I thought that there's a few things that I realized during these processes, and I wanted to share with you what's the difference between trying and succeeding. So hear me out. Let's jump into the first part. Welcome to the show about new ideas on how we live, work, and connect. This is Bori, Vigh, your host, and in the following episode, together with my guests and listeners, we are again in search of something different. All right, so before we get into the whole how to do this, I think the first part we need to talk about is why do you want to have a habit change, or why do you want to develop a new routine? So for example, I'm teaching a class, it's called Life Redesign, and for 2 weeks we are talking about changing habits and developing new routines. We are using the dose method where we are raising dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin and endorphin in our bodies, and eventually we come to the point where we need to do a balance board. Now this balance board is help people to keep track on their routine, and we learn how to get routines in our everyday life. What I realized why people usually have a little bit messed up routines or habits, or their thoughts are messed up around this topic, is because they try to imitate other people's morning routines, for example. I think it starts to get a little bit out of the fashion. There is less and less morning routine videos, but I feel like 3 or 4 years ago, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m., hello 5 a.m. club, and also there's this other crazy, I'm going to do at 6 o'clock, we're going to go for running and then journaling, and there's like a 5-hour morning routine by the time you get to the point that you start your actual day. And I think it works for some people, but I'm sure that it's not working for everybody. And what happens is that you read these blog posts, or you see these YouTube channels, or listen to podcasts where they recommend you to do these morning routines, and you feel like shit because you're not doing them. And you just wake up and, well, my morning routine a few years ago, it was I woke up, I had a coffee, I stood in the balcony and smoked a cigarette or 2 or 3, and then took a shower and started my day. That was pretty much my morning routine. And I felt horrible when I saw all these, how my life could be. Actually, what happened is that I didn't understand why you need to do these kind of things. But I did it anyway, and I felt horrible that I failed. So I tried to do other people's morning routines. And obviously, I failed because it was not something that, A, I was interested, B, I needed. The other thing, I was not in a need of any of these morning routines. So the very first thing when you're trying to put together a new habit or new ritual, morning routine, or not even morning, just any kind of routine, is that you need to figure out what is important to you. And I know that it sounds like obvious, but I feel that many people are just following along with what other people do. So if you don't want to do a meditation for 20 minutes in the morning, don't do it. I know that it's completely against what everybody says on the internet, but I don't think it's going to work for you. So first, what you need to do is figuring out why do you need something. So you figure out the goal and where you want to get with all those routines. So for example, if you like to go running every day, then maybe the goal should be that you want to run a marathon, and not that you would like to run every day. So without these goals, these routines are not going to make much sense, I think. Another thing is that, for example, if you would like to start journaling, I think it's really good for many people, but they need to feel the effect after a while, right? So, for example, I right away feel the effect. It clears out my mind, it's easier for me, and I see the long-term benefits as well. And I think what you can do, you can try out what other people suggest, but don't overwhelm yourself with other people's morning routines. So if you would like to have a little bit mental clarity, then yes, you should journal, you should probably try meditation, but you should see that you do this in the morning because you want mental clarity. Some people have no even idea why people do all these crazy morning routines and have nothing behind it. So when you know which is the direction where you would like to go, you need to double check, is this actually yours? Is this something that you actually want? So for example, if you decided that you want to run a marathon, which I actually did before and I've never ran, check in with yourself that is this really yours? Or you saw that this is something that other successful people do and therefore you would like to do this as well. I think it's hard to define how to feel if a dream is yours or not. But if you look back in your life and then you see that the things that you reached, those things that were real dreams before, how did you feel after reaching them? You feel like that was something that you really wanted to do, right? So I think when you're measuring whether or not you would like to do something in the future, like run a marathon or have mental clarity, then you need to check in with yourself. Is this something that I really want? Is this something that is mine? And just patiently listen and figure out if your body says, yeah, this is actually what I want. All right. So this is number one, why I think many people are struggling to keep their morning routine. It's that it's not theirs and they don't know why they would like to do this. So number two is when you're changing habits, there is this really interesting thing that you see everywhere. And unfortunately, some of the marketing tactics are playing against the odds here. So this is the short-term success formula that are being fed to you, I think, at least 10 times a day when you're walking around the streets or when you're listening to podcasts or you're just scrolling on your phone. You're going to see these classic marketing tactics where they go, reach this goal in only 2 weeks, get rich in only 6 weeks. I don't know, change your life in only a 25-minute seminar. So the value proposition always comes with a really short-term effect after what they say that, so it comes after really short realization of your dream. If you think about it, not much thing can be changed in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, some people are going to throw tomatoes at me after saying this. But I would say that if you really would like to change a habit in your life, 2 weeks probably not going to be enough. And yes, 21 days probably not going to be enough either. But in order for you to start doing this, these marketing campaigns are going to tell you that you only need 2 weeks or something like this. It's going to be a great kickoff. But usually what happens with these short-term benefits, it's either you don't do anything because the program is a scam, or the other thing is that you're going to push yourself for that limited amount of time and you're going to be frustrated and you're never going to see the results that you would want. So when you try to do something in the short term, what happens is that you will try to do it really perfectly. Let's talk about the diet, for example. This was me in a diet. I went on these crash diets, 10 days master cleanse, drinking only lemon juice with maple syrup, and I went, I think, keto for 2 weeks. I know that you shouldn't do keto for 2 weeks, but I always tried the crazy method, and I tried to push myself for only 2 weeks because I thought that if I can do it for 2 weeks, then everything is going to change, and it's only a matter of focus. But the real thing is that that's something that you cannot keep for long term. That's only something that you can keep for 2 weeks. So even if you lose weight or you reach goals, that method that you're using for two weeks are not going to be useful for later. If somebody tells you that you can change something in only 2 weeks, that's probably a scam. So another thing when comes up when you would like to change your habits is then people start saying that it's not a short term, but you need to change your lifestyle. So let's go back to diet again. If they say that you need to change the way you see food or your relationship with food, or that you need to be this athlete who goes to the gym 4 times a week, you're going to get scared of this. I mean, the problem with this, with the long term, or how I felt about this when people told me about this. In the beginning, everybody goes like, you need to change your lifestyle in order to lose weight. That's something that everybody keeps telling you, right? But the thing is that it feels like they expect you to go to sleep one day and the next day you wake up and you say, this is the new me. Today I'm going to be the perfect new version of me, and I'm going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. This sounds silly, right? So even though, the funny thing is that people try to do this, they go to sleep on Sunday and Monday they wake up, they're like, today, from now on, I'm going to be able to eat better and work out and go for walks and blah, blah, blah. And they believe that it's going to be happening for the rest of their lives. So what happens is that, of course, they will not be able to keep it again because they're going to make mistakes. So what's the difference between a short-term and a mid-term change is that when you're doing something for only mid-term, you're allowed to make mistakes because you know that you are in a learning phase. So as soon as you realize that how it happens is that it comes for a shorter period of time, let's say 3 to 6 months, when you are practicing your new routine. For example, let's stick to the diet now. You are learning how to eat a certain way. You're learning calorie deficit. You're learning how to count your calories. You're learning how many calories each food has. You're learning how to go to the gym. You're learning how to be persistent. So one thing that I've never actually tried before was to be consistent. I always gave up after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month. I gave up, I rested a little bit, and I tried again, and I felt like a complete failure for years. Because I forgot that there is something that I need to learn. So the second thing when you're changing habits, it comes with 2 phases, the learning phase and the knowing phase. When you're in the learning phase, you're going to make mistakes. So how to get over the learning phase? The problem is when you think that the learning phase is already the final phase and you get angry because of the mistakes. Because when you go through a period of time and you do all these mistakes, you eat more calories by accident, or you don't know your body enough and you overtrain, or you're too lazy and then you skip the gym once or twice and then you think this is the end of it and you're never going to go back again. You need to bring in curiosity. When you bring in some curiosity in your life, these mistakes are going to be the milestones or the path of learning to the state when you actually know how to behave. And that's the point when it becomes your lifestyle. So I think nobody ever explained this to me before, that I need to commit for up to 3 to 6 months when it gets to learning a new habit. This is not true though when you're stopping a bad habit. So there's a huge essential difference between the 2 things. When you're learning a new lifestyle versus when you're quitting something that you did before. And sometimes there is overlaps because obviously when you quit something, then there's going to be a new lifestyle around this. But what happens if you're trying to quit a bad habit and you're focusing on quitting this bad habit alone, there are a few things that are going differently. So when you decide to quit a bad habit for good, you never want to go back there, right? So that's one thing that I think many people make a mistake around. When you're learning something new, like for example, something essential like eating or eating healthy, there you will need to kind of practice a little bit and then you're allowed to make mistakes. But when you're giving up a bad habit, I think the reason why it worked for me, giving up smoking, for example, was that I decided that I am not allowed to make one thing, and that is put any kind of smoke into my lungs. And then I realized that actually what happens is that with each habit change, there's something that I always do, and then that I lock in the number one rule. And then if you're not taking anything else out of this podcast, here's the number one thing that I want you to remember. Make up one rule that you think is what is the most important and make that work. So giving up something, for me, the important part was that I'm never going to smoke one cigarette ever in my life. Not even a puff, not even shisha, not even weed. I'm not allowed to smoke joints at all. I know myself that I'm going to go back smoking the second there is any kind of smoke in my lungs. It took me 19 years to figure this out, that for me, this is not something where I can make a mistake. So I realized that because I was addicted to this so much, as soon as I'm going to make the mistake of believing that this is going to be only one puff, in that moment, I'm going to lose the bottle. So the one rule that you can come up with in any kind of things that you would like to change in your life is going to allow you to stick to it. So for example, my one rule for smoking was never ever having any kind of smoke in my lungs. And for learning how to eat better was that I'm going to track it in my MyFitnessPal every day. So the one rule helps me to focus on only one thing. And of course, you can add additional things. Like, for example, I'm going to measure every day how much calories I'm going to count. And then I started to count how much protein I'm going to have. And then I added an additional 10,000 steps, not calories. And then I added an additional, 4 times in the gym workout routine. But the number one rule never should change. And I think if you can commit to one rule, then you can raise the rest. But the problem is when you try to do everything all at once. So when you have this one rule, then I would like to ask you to relax the rest of it. I'm not saying that you should, give up on your routines and whatever. And it depends who is listening to this right now, because I think there are different characteristics. But sometimes your routines or habit change doesn't work because you're probably in the phase of, I'm going to do this. And you try to put so much stress on you and so much work on you that there is no ease in your days. And then your whole day is going to look like a bunch of routines that you borrowed from somebody else, not even yours, and you're doing so many things. So if you figured out what is the one rule, I wish you really good luck with it. You can actually tell us in our Spotify comments if you have Spotify, or you can just DM us on the Instagram. I hope to hear from you. I hope you like this short and brief little podcast episode, and I'll be back next week. You are listening to the In Search of Something Different podcast, where we talk about new ways and ideas on how we live, work, and connect. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, as it helps in this word. And also, you can say hi on Instagram. You can find the show under In Search of Something -different. I'll come back to you soon with the next episode, but until that, don't forget to stay curious.